We apologize deeply for this delay in our transmission today. Let's begin with our first story, where the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, says the strategy of his government is to increase investment to reduce unemployment. Well, according to the President, government is paying crucial attention to technical and vocational training in the country, explaining that the transformation of the structure of the Ghanaian economy and the reduction of unemployment.
The importance of education the world over cannot be stated enough. This is because no country has been able to shed the evils of poverty, ignorance, and disease with a largely illiterate population. The truth is that countries like Malaysia, Singapore, and South Korea, countries with whom we began our independence journey, have made it simply by wiping out illiteracy and empowering generations of citizens with the skills to power their nation's development. We in the new patriotic party, the party from which my government is born, believe in freedom, freedom of association, freedom of speech, freedom of opportunity. Freedom presupposes the citizen's ability to make informed choices. Citizens can only make informed choices. They are empowered with the capacity to make those choices. The best one with which an informed choice can be made is education.
Now, on Ghana's economy, the International Monetary Fund has reiterated its satisfaction with the country's economic progress so far after the IMF deal. Take a listen.
Pretty strong policy and reform efforts under the program are starting to bear fruit. Signs of economic stabilization are emerging. Growth in 2023 proved to be more resilient than initially expected. And although volatile, inflation has been declining rapidly. The fiscal and external positions have improved, and exchange rate volatility has declined in the country. The authorities are making good progress on their comprehensive debt restructuring. The domestic debt exchange was completed last year. On January 12th, the government reached agreement in principle with its official bilateral creditors. And Ghana is also engaging with its external private creditors to seek support. Looking ahead, steadfast policy and reform implementation will be needed to fully and durably restore macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability in Ghana. It will be critical for the government to continue implementing the program as envisaged to ensure sustainable growth and poverty reduction.
The Federation of Ghana Institution of Surveyors is pushing for a regulatory framework that will properly guide the work of its members and also address the maintenance of GAC surveyors. While speaking at the annual conference of the Ghana Institution of Surveyors, the president of the Federation of Ghana Institution of Surveyors, Surveyor Alhaji Daud Suleiman Mahama, expressed worry over the absence of a state regulatory law that guides surveying, which gives room for quack surveyors to operate.
In Ghana, we don't have an overarching law that actually sort of regulates surveying, and that is a very big disadvantage the country has. Over the past 20 plus years, the Ghana Institution of Surveyors has been championing the need for regulation of the industry, such that surveyors are properly licensed and regulated by a state agency, and therefore if there are infractions, they can be held accountable for such infractions. It has gone a long way because different segments of the society have different concepts about what is the best way out.
Surveyor Mahama mentions the pending bill awaiting the Attorney General's review, expressing hope that its enactment would rectify infraction and deter quack surveyors.
Luckily for us, that law now has reached a very advanced stage. It is currently before the Attorney General for consideration, and if it goes to Cabinet and it is approved, it goes to Parliament and it is approved, we have a law. So that is what we are hoping it will use to curb the practice of unqualified people who portray themselves as surveyors. If you are not properly trained as a surveyor, do not practice as a surveyor.
And Chiefs Avegomwa Budumburam in the central region have given persons living in Zone E of the Budumburam camp 3 working days to vacate the area. Well, the chief said the activities of the market remain along the stretch are impeding the construction works currently ongoing in the main Kaswa Cape Coast Highway.
I've gathered around the road side and side. We've got nowhere for them to have their marketing. But really we have had the land too. So we should approach the government or the authorities to come and help us to give that thing out to our community. So this thing has happened since about 3 years ago, that the government himself told us that he's coming to, demolish all the area. But due that we are litigation concerning the land, we couldn't allow him to do that until the 17th February 2023 that we had the judgment.
The Traditional Council has approved some decision to tax residents for the renovation of structures in some areas. Take a listen.
On the issue of security, I am happy to state that Mampurugu, and for that matter, the Northeast region has been relatively peaceful, except some disturbances in Lukula and Mimpiasam in the sole traditional area and Wali Wali. In the case of Lukula and Mimpiasam disturbances, which is of great concern to me, I wish to appeal to both factions, that is the Mampurusis and the Gonjas in that enclave, to exercise patience and give peace a chance, whilst I work hand in hand with my good brother, the King of Yagong, with other relevant stakeholders to bring finality to the matter, so as for us to live together as it has existed during the reign of our forefathers.
Let's do stories in politics, where the flag bearer of the NDC, John Dramani Mahama, has emphasized on how his political party are ready for the upcoming 2024 elections. Well, he made this known during his closing remarks delivered at the NDC Lab Policy Dialogue.
Acutely aware that we do not have the benefit of time at all from 7th January, it's just around the corner. After we get sworn into office, Ghanaians have high hopes and expectations, which we have every intention of meeting. In particular, the 24-hour economic policy pledge has found resonance with most Ghanaians, especially the youth, as confirmed by both database and anecdotal evidence. We remain determined to build the Ghana we want together with all Ghanaians, so that we can collectively reap the outcomes of our shared prosperity. The policy dialogue is further proof of our desire to subject our policy proposals to scrutiny and to synthesize various views to enable us refine and fine-tune them to meet the expectations of our dear people. The widespread acceptance of the 24-hour policy appears to have sent the NPP campaign into a tailspin, leading to a frenzied effort to attack it through calumny and disinformation in these last few days. We are fortified in the knowledge that the days when the MPP assumed that they could use falsehood to hoodwink Ghanaians for electoral advantage are over, especially because of their horrific performance in the last 7 years after they were entrusted with the administration of our dear nation, Ghana. Not only do I have a much better and measurable record of performance in both my role as Vice President and as head of the Economic Management Team, and later as President, but I also have a record of taking responsibility. I note that my long-expired pledges to substantially reduce the size of government by having much fewer ministers, appointees, and to abolish the payment of ex gratia, to scrap some taxes like the e-levy and carry out far-reaching constitutional and governance reforms have compelled my opponents to promise same, despite being front of center of the poor governance under which all these ills have taken place. We are ready, and a lot is happening. I have the utmost confidence that very soon we shall see and have a feel of a manifesto that responds to the day-to-day needs of Ghanaians and leverages on our shared aspirations and common identity when it is launched. A manifesto that will be anchored on the people's will. We're ready. I am ready. And I am ready to lead us to build the Ghana we want together.
Meanwhile, the flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, John Dramani Mahama, has reiterated that his government will train 1 million youths under the Coding for Employment initiative.
And the same innovation will drive some of our other job creation efforts. It is in the light of this that the next NDC government seeks to partner with local tech startups and businesses to launch a digital jobs initiative to create at least 300,000 skilled employment opportunities for young people. We shall also establish a fintech growth fund with an initial seed capital of USD $50 million to support indigenous companies in fostering the growth of the digital economy. Our brothers and sisters and children who are interested in coding will have the opportunity to participate in our Coding for Employment program, which is targeted to train 1 million coders with in-demand digital skills for the growing business process outsourcing and knowledge process outsourcing ecosystem.
And still in politics, the leader of the Movement for Change, Alan Kwejo Chemantin, has given an assurance to Daboso-Kain traders that if he becomes president, there will be no port duties on spare parts here in Ghana.
To reform our tax structure. That's where it starts from. It's not a question of picking 1 or 2 taxes and then abolishing them. If we reform our tax structure, taxes will automatically come down. If you go to the advanced economies, the tax structure is such that they earn more revenue from direct taxes than from indirect taxes. It is the opposite in Ghana. In Ghana, we pile a lot of taxes on import duties, which affects the competitiveness of business people. But that's the wrong way to collect taxes. Bring the taxes down for businesses to survive. And when they survive, then they can employ more people. When they employ more people, you can get more taxes from income tax and from corporate tax. In all the advanced countries, that's the tax regime. So just eliminating 1 or 2 taxes does not solve the problem. We need to change and recalibrate our tax structure. That's the first thing that we need to do.
Stories in SDG goals, Ghana on track despite financial gap. Well, the government of Ghana, in partnership with the World Economic Forum Sustainable Development Investment Partnership, initiated the country financing roadmap for the SDGs.
Actually, we've actually done quite well. There's still a lot of work to do, obviously. I think globally, obviously, there's a lot of work to do because we are only on track for 15% of the SDGs. We're off about 85% globally. I think Ghana as a country done moderately well. There's still some areas that we need to improve. And so really the next 7 years or 6.5 years is going to be very critical for that. So that's why we are, as a Global Compact, saying that we need to accelerate action, particularly from the private sector, because the private sector has to contribute significantly. As you know, approximately $43 billion is needed to finance the SDGs every year in Ghana. So I think one of the areas we definitely need to see improvement is the financing gap. We can't rely on the government to do this alone. We cannot rely on the UN system to do that alone. So we need to see more corporate action, more companies getting involved. And there are several ways that they can do this.
Let's do some international news, where the West African regional bloc is lifting most sanctions imposed on Niger over last year's coup, while a new push for dialogue following a series of political crises that have wrecked the region in recent months. A no-fly zone and border closures were among the sanctions being lifted with immediate effect. The president of the Economic Community of West African State Commission, Omar Aliyu Tori, said this.
With regard to the withdrawal of the 3 countries, the authority notes that the withdrawal will have political, socio-economic, financial and institutional implications for the 3 countries as well as for ECOWAS as a region. The authority recognizes that the withdrawal will automatically affect the immigration status of the citizens, as they may be required to obtain visas to travel around the region. Citizens may no longer be able to reside or set up businesses under ECOWAS arrangements and may be subject to diverse national laws. The 3 countries will cease to use ECOWAS passports, ECOWAS biometric national identity cards, and the region-wide ECOWAS brown card vehicle insurance. Reviewing the implications at the institutional level, the authority has resolved to lift with immediate effect the following measures imposed on the Republic of Niger. A, closure of land and air borders between ECOWAS countries and Niger to be lifted. No-fly zone of all commercial flights to and from Niger is to be lifted. Suspension of all commercial and financial transactions between ECOWAS member states and Niger is to be lifted. Freezing of all service transactions, including utility services, is to be lifted. Freezing of assets of the Republic of Niger in ECOWAS central banks is to be lifted. Freezing of assets of Niger state and the state enterprises and parastatals in commercial banks is to be lifted. Suspension of Niger from all financial assistance and transactions with all financial institutions, particularly EBID and BOID, is to be lifted. Travel ban on the government officials and their family members is also to be lifted. This decision is based on humanitarian considerations, especially as we are in the month of Lent and as we prepare for the holy month of Ramadan. The authority has also resolved to lift the sanctions regarding the recruitment of Malian citizens in statutory and professional positions within ECOWAS.